Who in the room would like to expand their business, make a ton of cash, and sell it for a rude amount of money later on? Oh, most of you. Well done, I'm in the right place then. Okay, well, the topic I'm talking about today is probably massive. And, you know, we could be here till the middle of next week, but I can assure you I'm going to get finished in 30 minutes. Before I start, let me introduce myself. My name is Andrew Bowen. I am one half of the entrepreneurs. My wife, who's sat there, Claire. We are authors of the best-selling book, The Daily Grind. And also we run a free website for coffee shop owners, which has got loads of free resources for coffee shop, independent coffee shops in particular. And in September this year, we are running a coffee shop boot camp. More about that at the end. So, I'm here to talk about the phases of growth of your coffee shop business or hospitality business. So, I'll put a graph up there. You can see you've got the 4 stages of growth. The startup, the first site phase, the first growth phase, and then followed by the growth to scale phase. So, alongside it, I put in red the stress level of the founders. At the beginning, the stress level of the founders is fairly low because you're all excited about opening a new coffee shop. You can't really worry about what you don't know yet. But as you move on, it gets a bit more stressful until you open your first site, and then after about a year, it becomes less stressful because hopefully, if you're doing a good job, you're seeing money in the till. You set up processes and procedures, and you don't need to be there all the time. And that's when the stress level goes down, and consequently, because you've got a profitable business, the banks and the lenders are quite happy to lend you money. Until you go to them and say, I've got this great business, everyone is telling me how good it is, you know, everyone in town loves it, and everyone's coming and telling me, you should open another one in the town up the road. And the minute you go to the bank, the minute you try and borrow money to open your second site, that's when it gets hard to borrow money. Because hospitality businesses are notoriously difficult to borrow money for. So the access to cash goes down. So when you go from one site to 2 sites, and 2 sites to 3 sites, that's when it becomes difficult. And the stress level goes up. Because you suddenly stop becoming a manager or an entrepreneur in a coffee shop, and you suddenly become a manager of a group of coffee shops. So you've got to start employing area managers, you've got to start having some sort of health function, you need some sort of service contracts. All the bootstrap stuff that you started up with, the cheap solutions, you doing your own admin, using cheap IT solutions, won't grow with you and they'll collapse. So you've got to get that first site right before you can move on. And eventually, when you go to scale, it actually becomes a bit easier. So today I'm going to focus on that middle bit about, how to go from 1 to 2. And from 1 to 2 on onwards. And I think you should, before you go forward and consider opening your second site, you should take the bus test. So what I mean by that is that if you were run over by a bus tomorrow, would your business open? Would the doors open? Would the staff turn up? Would the rotors get done? If something broke down, would it get fixed? And often, when we go and speak to people who want to increase their business or open a second site, and they say, come have a look at us, sometimes these guys have got 2 or 3 sites. And we're going to talk to them, sit down with them, and we'll understand, within seconds, we can see that their structure is not suitable for expansion. They haven't got the bedrock in place, they haven't got the principles, the processes in place to move forward. And the minute they open their 3rd or 4th site, then they will find themselves in trouble. The whole thing, the whole pack of cards will collapse. Who's read the book, The E-Myth by Michael Gilbert? A few of you. So, if you haven't got that book and you are looking to expand your business, I highly recommend you get it. In that, he talks about considering your business as getting it ready to expand, as to franchise. So even though you might not be thinking of franchising, the moral of the story in his book is around making sure you've got the systems and principles, processes in place so that you can replicate them in a cookie-cutter fashion. Even if you don't want to franchise your business, you should get these processes in place. And remember, you can only raise money for an expansion if you've got a sound business model. And what I mean by a sound business model is that it's not just you've got cash left in the bank at the end of the month. You need to be able to pay yourself a wage, a proper wage, a living wage as a founder, as an owner of a business, and you're going to be working there. You need to factor that in, because when you step aside, you will need to employ a manager. So if you can't, at the moment, pay yourself a decent living wage, then really you should need to consider expanding. And also, you really need to understand that after 3 years, in our business, we see so many customers come in, wreck the place. You need to refresh it every 3 years. You need to have enough money in your budget to refresh after about 3 years. If you don't do that, then your business will go on the decline. So let's talk about franchising. So why should you franchise your business? And you've probably seen from the show notes, so I need to fess up at this point, I have been a franchisee. Back in 2006, I was one of the first, myself and Claire were one of the first franchisees for Caffe Republic, when Bobby Hashimi started franchising Caffe Republic. And we were very successful. Within 2 years, we had 3 sites, we had £1 million turnover business. So has anybody in the room got experience of franchising? A couple? Okay. So why would you want to franchise your business? So you're in a situation now, one way of expanding is to franchise a business, and why franchise? Well, the typical answer is to expand quickly, with less capital, using other people's money. The difficulty becomes that when you do that with the franchise, you end up with all these people called franchisees, who, they're paying money to you every month for a service. So you have these group of franchisees, and sometimes the franchisees can be a little bit awkward. You end up with property as well. I'll talk about property a little bit further on. But you do end up with an issue around property, which you need to manage really carefully. Just because you're franchising business doesn't mean you haven't got any problems with property potentially. And of course, you've got to share your profit with your franchisees. So if there's not enough money in your business to pay you and to share the profit with a franchisee, then really probably not a good idea to franchise. And in preparation for today, I spoke to Jeffrey Sturgeon, who is one of the UK's, probably not the world's finest franchisors. I've probably got to say that. I thought he might be here today, so I'll put that in the show. But when I asked him what were the biggest mistakes franchisers make, and that was not having enough capital and not being realistic about how much a franchisee can make. And typically, when you decide to franchise, it will take you 2 years and £150,000 to get from deciding to franchise to opening your first franchise business. And that's actually using a franchise consultant who will speed things along as well. You've got to have a franchise agreement. If you don't have a really strong franchise agreement, then your business is at risk and potentially you could lose it. Of course, you could download one off the internet, £79, but I don't think that will come in very handy when you've got your first dispute with your franchisee, which will happen down the road. So, quick question. How many shops should you have before you franchise? Any idea? Is it 10, 20, 5? Well, the actual answer is none. You actually don't need any working operating shops to franchise your business. All you need is a franchise agreement and an operating manual. And actually somebody who will take their money and invest it in your idea. I don't know many people who have managed to start a franchise coffee shop like that, but if there is anybody in the room that would like to use the money to franchise my idea, then please come see me at the end. I'm sure we can take your money off it. So what should you expect when you franchise your business? What sort of revenues should you expect? Well, as a franchisor, you can probably charge between 7 and 10% revenue for your service charge, for the operating manual, for the secrets of running this successful business. You can charge 3% of marketing as a marketing fee. which should be ring-fenced, by the way, for marketing alone. A software fee for if you want your franchisees to use your software, if you want them to use your till system or ordering systems, then you can charge them for that. And you can also make money from the supply chain as well. So if you're, particularly if you work hard to get cheap prices for your franchisees, then you can charge, you can take some money off the supply chain as well. But remember, there needs to be enough money in the franchise, in the franchise you're franchising, for both the franchisee and yourself. There's no point in being greedy and having franchisees fail. You want to ensure they're successful. There are some costs, there's quite a lot of costs actually running a franchise. And of course you move from being an entrepreneur and you move over to becoming a manager of franchises. So what you like doing at the moment, which is running your coffee shop and talk to customers and dealing with the issues of making beautiful coffee and making lovely sandwiches, those are the sort of things you quite like at the moment. Suddenly, you're not. You're managing a franchise, a group of franchisees who can be quite disruptive or difficult or challenging, because actually they're paying you a lot of money. So you will need to ensure that you give them good value. Obviously, the lead costs I talked about are going to be 150 grand. Recruitment. Once you spend all that money on setting up your franchise agreement, on setting up your operating models, on recruiting a franchise manager, you will need probably to employ a franchise manager. There are people out there that do this for a living, so they can, but you will need somebody to ensure the business is audited, that the brand standards are maintained, that any queries from the franchisee are answered. So you will need at some stage a franchise manager. And the BFA, everyone should join the BFA. So the BFA is the British Franchise Association. Because when you're recruiting your franchisees, the first question they're going to ask is, are you a member of the British Franchise Association? And probably the last question they're going to ask you is, are you a member of the British Franchise Association? So, definitely worthwhile joining that, and there's a cost for that as well. The pitfalls, well, you've still got the same issue with location, because, you can still get a location for these new franchisees. If you're something like Costa or Starbucks, it's a no-brainer, because you've got enough covenant in your brand to go out and get a unit, sublet it to a franchisee, and if they make a mistake, you can give them that. But if you're starting up, you ain't got local capital, chances are you're going to have to look for really good franchisees to start. In terms of recruitment, this is one of the biggest pitfalls. You spend all this money. On the one hand, sorting out the manuals, sorting out the franchise agreements, and you really need, now your business model says you need to start some franchises. If somebody comes along to you with a big checkbook and a pen, able to sign, even though they're not, the perfect franchisee, you'll think, well, actually, if I get other franchisees on board, it's to sell a franchise. So that's potentially you end up with the wrong franchisee. So you've got to be really strict on getting that. And of course, you've got the 2-year itch. So after 2 years, your franchisee has been there, you train them, they know everything, they're actually doing quite well with a bit of luck, and they're thinking to themselves, well, why on earth do I need to pay this chap over here any money? Because I know all now, what benefit are you getting? Again, if that's Costa or Starbucks, there's no way you're going to leave, because you know that if you change it from McDonald's to Bob's Burger Bar, you know that Bob's Burger Bar ain't going to be taking 1/4 or 1/10 of the turnover of the McDonald's. So because it's not an issue. If you're an independent startup and franchisee, the biggest challenge for you is to ensure that 2-year itch gets scratched, and the way to get it scratched is to ensure that you as a franchisor get your brand as strong as possible, as good as possible, so that it pays for itself. So people see your brand and they walk in, they recognise it, and they can't wait for one to walk in the name. So, at this point, you're probably thinking, well, actually, I'm not going to follow a franchise, it sounds a lot of hard work. And it is actually, it is quite a lot of hard work to franchise your business, and it's not easy. So how else do I need to raise capital? I want to move from one shop to 2 shops to 3 shops to 4 shops. Well, if you're something like, you've got a really strong business, and I don't know if any of you know about lounges, but lounges have just gone from, in the last 7 years, they've gone from 10 shops to 100 shops, and they managed to get quite a capital investment from private equity. and they wouldn't have been able to grow without that. But they had a really sound business model at the beginning. So that's one way. But the second way, or another way, not the second way, is crowdfunding. So every time you turn your TV on, every time you open up your newsfeed on Facebook or you compare newsletter, up comes somebody who's just received so many million or so many 100,000 on crowdfunding. So, and there's lots of different crowdfunding things out there. Crowdfunding's been a bit of a wild west recently, and has had a little bit of a bad name. There are horror stories out there of people investing in crowdfunding schemes and not getting the money back, not hearing from the people that they've invested in and got. Luckily, I think things have calmed down a little bit now, and in fact, so much so there is a UK Franchise Association, which probably, a UK Crowdfunding Association, which is probably not a bad place to start, and they've got 37 members. So here's some recent examples of some successful crowdfunding campaigns. So we've got Oakland that managed to get £2.5 million very, very quickly in doing it. Of course, you've got Brewdog, and they're the sort of darlings of the crowdfunding industry. They've raised £10 million so far. Chili Pickle is an interesting one. They have raised £7,000 on Growth Deck. They're a Brighton-based curry restaurant, and they're ready for expansion, and they've raised £7,000 very, very recently. Hummus Brothers, 125 grand, and Humble Grade, £1 million. There are some failures. I'm not going to put the failures up on the screen for feeling embarrassing them. However, dig deep. If you are investigating crowdfunding, dig deep. Have a look at the ones that fail, because you will learn as much from them as the ones that succeeded. And of course, the ones that fail tend to sort of drop off the radar. They don't pop up on your screen when you do the searches, and sometimes they get deleted. With crowdfunding, there's loads of different ways of using crowdfunding. And sometimes you can put a bond up, which you'll pay a good rate of interest on. Sometimes you give away equity in your business, and sometimes you just give away vouchers. You might give away dinner vouchers, or lunch vouchers, or event vouchers. Some attract lots of small individual investors, and some are high net worth individuals. Particularly with those schemes, take advantage of what's called the Enterprise Investment Scheme, which is really tax efficient for high tax paying, high net worth individuals, because not only is it very tax efficient, it also saves them from the downside as well. So the whole scheme is really good. But if you're starting up at the moment, or thinking about going to start Site 2, then probably Kickstarter. That's probably what you're thinking about. It might be a good start. And typically on Kickstarter, you would put up pre-ordered meals or vouchers or deals. I spoke to Andrew Books, who was in the top 1%. Now, he invented the Paquito. Has anyone seen the Paquito? I meant to bring one today to show you. Okay, well, I won't. But if you haven't seen it, it's worth looking at. It's really, if you own a coffee shop, it's a great thing to have there, because it's the world's first collapsible, usable coffee cup. So dishwasher safe and all the rest of it. Andrew put this onto Kickstarter, and he is in the top 1% of all Kickstarter campaigns I've ever run. And when I talked to him about, what was it like, well, he actually said, listen, he said it's not a simple shortcut to getting money easily. There's an awful lot of work involved in setting up your Kickstarter campaign. You need to, it's like anything, people don't give you money, and sometimes it can be harder than getting one individual, because we're going to talk to lots of people. Sometimes it can be quite demoralising, particularly if you fail. So what will you need for a Kickstarter campaign? Well, the first thing, in typical business plan, you will need a problem that needs fixing. So you need a high street with a fantastic coffee shop. You need a town without a cycle cafe. You need an opportunity for you to fill. You need a gap. You need something where there's no point opening a vegan cafe in the middle of the market. So you need, however great your idea is, you need to be able to have a problem with fix, and that can be easily visible so people can see what the problem is. You need an amazing story as well, because the crowdfunding stuff is all about you. It's all about the person setting the business up. So if I'm going to put 20 quid of my money, I want to know about your story. I want to know about your business. I want to know about your values. I want to know what your history is. I want to feel confident I'm giving you money so that it, I have a good chance of getting your money back. You will need fantastic videos as well. So I think Andrew had about 7 different videos on his campaign, and they're all different demographics for different channels. So there was some for Facebook, there was some for YouTube, there was some for the campaign itself, there was some, and you had it segmented. You worked really hard. But you will need, and actually these videos probably need to get made throughout the campaign as well. The other thing you need is a great campaign page. So if you think, if you look at some of the really poor examples on Kickstarter, which is one page, please give me 150 grand, I'm opening a restaurant in Nevada selling fried chicken. And that's a picture of the owner and perhaps a 5-minute crappy video. Well, these guys aren't getting funded. The ones that are getting funded are the ones that have a fantastic sales page. So imagine you go to the internet and you're looking for something to buy. Imagine an Amazon page. You'll look at the reviews. You'll look at the star ratings. You look at the actual comments from customers. You look at the description. You look at the pictures. So all those things need to be on your campaign page. They need to be Amazon page on steroids. Really, it needs to be fantastic. It's full of frequently asked questions. And in fact, there are plenty of examples of where people have put out a campaign and not raised the money because their campaign page was pretty awful. And then 6 months later, realised their mistake, spent a lot more time doing some lovely videos, loads of graphics, frequently asked questions, and make a great campaign page, stroll on forever. You know the ones, yeah? Can't get to the bottom of them, they just carry on going, and there's another benefit, there's another benefit, there's another benefit. So you need a great campaign page, and you need to be active throughout the campaign as well. There's no point in just pressing the button and just waiting 28 days to see if the campaign finishes. You will need to be active throughout the whole campaign. Because people will be asking questions. That's the whole point of crowdfunding. So people will come to you, they'll be sending messages, direct messages, you put a message on Facebook, and you really need to be prepared to answer those questions. And actually, it's great feedback, because you've got all these people asking you questions, you won't get that anywhere else in advertising. You literally ask you these great questions, and you can answer the questions on your campaign page, or perhaps make another video, because perhaps people don't quite get it. And finally, you do need to promote it in other ways. You need a proper PR campaign. You need to consider Facebook advertising. Whatever your demographic, whatever the people that you want to invest in your business live online, or anywhere else, you need to advertise within that space. So Facebook advertising is fantastic. So you need a strong PR campaign combined with Facebook. So I've got a video now of, just to finish off, from a guy called Gary Usher from Redfish, who's got a Kickstarter campaign to open his, I think, 2nd or 3rd restaurant in Liverpool.
In Liverpool, we love it. And we're just saying, we love it. That's Japanese, ask me again. It will be the same. It will be this stuff. And what this one's predominantly going to be is we're selling meals. 50 quid for a lunch voucher, 100 quid for a dinner voucher, so we'll pull all that together. With that £200, we then open a restaurant. So no one's getting mugged off. I'm not asking, can I have your money so I can go and open a restaurant? I am, but we've given something for it. I don't want to say it's £200 because it sounds crazy. It's £250 for £1,000,000. With that, well, we need a lot more than £200. We're crowdfunding for £200. and then we need to find money from other places as well. This will probably end up costing like 400 grand, but the crowdfund is 200 grand. Yeah, which is quadruple what the last one was. What we said to people was, pay whatever you want. So, come, pay what you want. If you like it, put some cash in an envelope, and if you don't, don't. It could be amazing, because what we're making this week is the first bit that goes into the crowdfund.
1, 2, 3. Listen.
I want to say it here. I want it to succeed. I want it to do it. Like, it's worth it. Yeah. I know I want to come back, so it needs to happen this way. Yeah.
Gorgeous property, you can see it looks amazing, and dinner was perfect. And yeah, so it's alright. It's alright. Happy.
I'm a big fan of baseball.
Hi, I'm Nuno. I love Sydney. Oh, it is brilliant. Don't put these good bits on, right?
We're all here because we like what he does, and the food was just sublime. I mean, it was just amazing.
I think it's going to be just as good, if not better. I've been waiting for them to come to Liverpool.
It feels like people want us to do well. So, yeah, it kind of feels like, people will pledge. But the difference is, it's 200 grand. If we do it, it would be fucking amazing. Imagine.
Here we are. That wasn't supposed to happen. I suppose I could carry on swearing a bit and pretend that I'm Gary, but it's quite a big video file. I was worried. I was told this morning that might happen. However, if you see, it's worth looking at actually when you go home on YouTube. Definitely, I'll go to Kickstarter and look at it. Are you going to try and put it up again, or no? I don't know. Yes or no. Anyway, basically, he had a problem that needs fixing. He's a real character. He's got an amazing story. He did some fantastic PR, because what this guy did, he found this restaurant he wanted. He found this unit, this amazing building at the sort of beginning, that he wanted to convert into a restaurant. He gave away a week's worth of free meals. He got some fantastic PR. It was a pay as much as you want deal. So you go to his restaurant, pay as much as you wanted, and at the end of it, it was proof of concept. And he got some fantastic PR. He was in newspapers, he was everything, and he's got 8 days to go, and he is £144,000 out of £200,000. So 8 days to go, so he's nearly there, and he's got 910 investors. And his campaign ticked every box. So, just the last slide, we can get the last slide. So that's it. Thank you for coming on and listening to me. I hope you've had some value from it. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are running a boot camp, a coffee shop boot camp, the first boot camp ever to be held for new coffee shop owners at Union Coffee in London at the end of September. Myself and John Richardson and Union are all going to do it together. It's a 3-day boot camp where, if you're thinking of a coffee shop, you will come away with a business plan and everything you need to start the business successfully and not lose money. And if you want more information about that, you need to text 88802, text boot, and your email address to 88802. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a bit of time for questions. Fascinating area, because obviously you covered 2 very, very different ways of expanding that model. Let's start, as we were just talking about crowdfunding. I mean, one of the first things that strikes me is, it's a completely different way of attracting investors. Obviously, a totally different sort of investor. And really, it almost seems to be as much about how good your social media is as how good your business plan is. Would that be fair? And are there some risks of sort of kind of the image over content from that side?
I think there's quite a lot of risks. The biggest risk is you don't achieve getting money and lose your product. But as I said, you just can't allow your Kickstarter campaign to press the button and do nothing. You have got to invest a lot of time and effort into it and think about it as any campaign, any marketing campaign. And the unique thing about the great thing about crowdfunding is of course you can get a whole world involved. When you've got a restaurant in Liverpool, how many people will want to buy those vouchers, to come to your restaurant? So the pool of people that you're able to attract for that initial investment is greatly reduced. So you need to have great local PR. There's actually no point really in advertising simply in China or to Japan for a restaurant in Liverpool, unless rural price. People are able to fly in, and that'd be great. But in reality, it's not going to happen. So, more local PR. And actually, sometimes it's easier to get local PR because the local newspapers are often desperate for good news stories.
Do you think that, from what you've seen so far, it's possible to get more favourable terms? I mean, as you said, you can give away some things which cost you less money, I guess, is part of it. But I mean, does it seem to you a better way of getting more favourable terms than going to traditional lending institutions? Or is it about covenants, or is it about terms, do you think?
I think if I was given a choice, I would rather have one lender. I think the issue with crowdfunding is it's harder if you find a block, because traditional banks and fund lenders, there comes a point when you're starting up where you potentially have some equity and you put that in against the loan. And you get to a point where that loan value is not big enough for you to take out more money from the bank, and the bank can't lend you any more money. And then you get that situation where they won't lend you money anyway, so what do you do? So, crowdfunding is the way around that, really. And the terms, you've got to be quite generous with the terms, but ultimately, you might be able to get money in 28 days instead of waiting 6 months or a year for a bank to lend it out.
And then going back to more traditional models, I mean, obviously franchising, being very popular in the F&B market as a whole. You were talking about some of the pitfalls of kind of who you get into bed with. Can you think of any particular tips about what you might look for from a franchisee or warning signs from a franchisee that you're thinking of going into partnership with?
I think they need to be well funded. I think if they're mom and pop, they've got a pot of money, and they're not well funded, and they haven't really got the expansion plan. Probably not ideal. I know some franchisors actually actively look for independent. You're only allowed to buy one franchise from me, but I think in our business that there are so many economies of scale of being able to run multiple sites and multiple franchisees. I think actually that's probably not good. So I would look for somebody who would want to open more than one site, and have a mini chain. That's what Costa have done so well. A lot of their franchisees now are multi-millionaires with 30, 40 million pound businesses. So they've done quite well out there.
So there's hope for you all out there. You never know your luck. But and then one last question. I mean, you touched on some of the biggest risks of growth. I mean, we were talking about having enough capital for the inevitable need for refurbishment. Are there any other common pitfalls you see? People misjudging that sort of step up from going from maybe one or two to more. I mean, whether it's a franchise or actually opening their own direct stores.
Yeah, it's the. I was talking to somebody at the beginning of the talk today actually about that. You might have a couple of shops talking. There comes a point where your bootstrap stuff won't work. Where you cannot, as a founder, be there every day, answering people's questions, fixing their problems. You've got to be able to step away from it. You need to, you've got to start looking for even better people. You might have some great baristas working for you, but you've got some great leaders working for you, and that's when the costs start. And you have this horrible bit in the middle where you're probably up to about 10 shops. You're opening one shop and you open a second shop, two shops. And then within about 5 shops, you're going to have a failure. You're going to have a disaster, guaranteed. Brett yesterday, I was here yesterday with Rock Palmer, and Mark said to me that it was 5 years before Brett and Monche got to a point where they felt they actually started making money. Now, we all look at Brett and Monche and think what a wonderful business they've got. But it was 5 years, hard graft, tuning, fine-tuning, getting the process in place, getting the right sites. And often, you want to run before we walk, you've got to understand, you've got to get the process in place and get enough cash generated from this business you've got for you to be able to fund it.
Okay, so we've got Sophie there with the microphone. Have you got any questions from you guys before we carry on? Fantastic. I think we've got one there and then one over there, Sophie.
Yeah, in terms of the franchising model, how large a demand is it for that still within the marketplace in terms of people wanting to buy franchises? I've got a couple of clients in about that 10-site mark who are considering franchising. I don't know a lot of it myself, but I'm just, so I'm slightly low in terms of information in that area. Do you still believe that demand for franchises is out there from people? Those entrepreneurs who are thinking, I'm not quite brave enough to do it myself, I'd still like to have that safety net.
I think there is. I think there is, and myself there were the typical franchise seeds. Back in the day, we were corporate, out-service, needed to change, wanted to work for somebody else, didn't want to work for somebody else, but didn't quite, didn't have the sort of skill set or the experience in the hospitality industry to be able to go forward. So I think you're always going to have that type of person out there, and there is a good for really good coffee shop franchise models there. In truth, there is, it's not a very highly contested market. So if somebody has got a really good franchise that can prove to make a model that is making money and has got a brand strength that will attract people, then I'd say there's definitely opportunity for this.
Thank you. And there's a gentleman over there, Sophie, blue t-shirt. Okay, Sophie, we're on for our money. Thank you, well done. Lifestyle fitness.
Hi, Andrew. Hi. Can you tell us about your experience with your franchising with Coffee Republic?
I can do, yeah. Well, it's pretty well known actually that Coffee Republic went bust. So what happened with us is that we grew very quickly. We got 3 really good sites, really profitable business, and then they went bust and everything changed. So, I've talked about today as a franchisor rather than a franchisee, but that is a pitfall of a franchisee as well. You need to make sure that your franchisor is stronger. And it came out of the blue for all of us. And it's just one of those things, and we can experience it.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
And any other questions? From anyone? Just sort of, going back in, I think you touched on, if you're the owner, and we had Peter from Caffeine here yesterday, who's very much, he's absolutely symbiotic with his brand. When you are going across it, like, say more than 2 probably, and you lose that control, I think you talk about strength of the brand. Yeah. I guess that strength of putting a team in place, not just leaders, but people with maybe financial control, there's people with the skills that you need to make sure the business stays.
It's interesting because on that graphic, you go from one shop to many shops, and a couple of things happen. Is that the guys that are with you at the beginning are, your friend, but they love you because they see you every day. They love you to bits, and the customers love you to bits because you're there every day. And then suddenly, when you're not there, and you bring an area manager in, you're not the same bloke anymore. So something like Andrew, he was a good bloke a minute ago, but now he's got what's happened to him. He's got this big business now, and he's got time to me. And so the people that you used to employ, that you still employ, which was fantastic to help you grow your business, and now you're sort of moving on, and you employ different people, and suddenly you're a different guy. So and you're in this difficult situation as well because you're you get try too small to be big or too big to be small. So you don't quite get enough iron power. You can't go to the likes of the milkman and say, I've got £100,000 a year milk business, can you give me 3 or 4 kilos of milk? You're not quite big enough yet, so these economy sellers haven't quite come in. And of course, you can employ a few people with overhead, and those overheads sort of sit around for ages. You've got a big overhead, big head office costs, you've got an area manager, you've got some good payrolls, you've got all these stuff, pension becomes an issue, all these technical things you probably just got away with because nobody involved. But the minute so it changes, your whole life changes when you move from this one site business to a multi-site business. And it's quite challenging.
I guess when you were starting out, the crowdfunding didn't exist.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at it now, if you were going to go through that same journey again, other than obviously checking that Coffee would probably get enough money to look after you, what would you do differently, do you think? I mean, would you look at crowdfunding and doing your own thing? Do you think the franchise model was robust, other than, obviously the due diligence on the part?
Yeah, it's more of a use case, that's all you need. I think if I was going to do the same again, knowing what I'm doing now, I would probably have spent a year working in the industry, because I came from a retail background, not a hospitality background. And although I thought, at the time, the retail and hospitality are the same thing, because people come through your door, and you serve them, and you go out, hospitality is completely different. So I think I would have, depending on how I would have done that. I would have spent a year earning minimum wage in a coffee shop to learn the ropes. The money I invested in the other franchising would more than pay for that investment in myself. So, and then I would come out of that. And back in the day, it wasn't, the independent coffee scene wasn't the same. There wasn't a speciality scene. So, difficult to say. But yeah, it's a lot of mistakes, probably honestly.
And then just touching on the question the gentleman asked, I mean, I think yesterday people talked quite a lot about, obviously coffee shops are going to see phenomenal growth. Is the bubble going to burst? Is it still going to be strong? You said you still think this is a strong market. You've got the right idea, right locations.
Yeah, I think the market itself is growing overall. I think the education of the company is growing overall. There's still a lot of people who don't drink coffee, and there's a lot of people that still accept mediocre coffee. I think the way the market's going is that people are getting more educated. People will not now go to the core coffee stage shops, and that's one of the challenges for the machines as well. So these machines don't produce the same sort of quality coffee that we expect, so they're everywhere. People are getting more fussy. I think there's still a lot of machines. I think there's fragmentation in the market, and you see it in every sort of market. You have this massive conglomeration, and then you get this speciality at the top. So we begin to see that where the specialities, a good speciality coffee shop can outperform a brand chain locally. But they need to be bloody good. They just can't be good. They've got to be fantastic. There is no point in just making good coffee, good cakes, smiley people in a nice location. That will not make money. You've got to be special. And if you're not special, you're even going to make money.
Fantastic. Well, that sounds like a very good note to conclude on. Very interesting, and I think, opportunities and challenges, I suppose, like every other market, but there's a lot of hard work out there for someone, but opportunities there too. Sounds like the best thing someone could do is go on your boot camp at the end of September and find out all about it. So I wonder if we can thank Andrew, and I'm sure you can grab him afterwards if you want to know any more. Thank you.